Hello everyone. Today I'll be discussing about the Archer interview questions. A lot of companies are using GRC, are using Archer as a platform where they try to calculate the risks, try to remediate it, see whether things are being governed in the way it's defined as per the regulatory standards, the control procedures. So there's a lot of demand of Archer these days. It's actually a very hot tool these days. And for you to crack any of the interviews of any of the companies, you need to have a basic understanding of what Archer is. And I have covered most of the questions which nowadays are being asked very frequently. This consists of basic level questions, the advanced questions, the intermediate questions, all the categories. There are a total of 30 questions that I've put forward for you to go through it and check your knowledge, or maybe prepare for your dream job. So here comes the first question, which is, what are the different level of access in Archer? Now, when I talk about the different level of access, the answer to it is having 4 levels: the platform level, application questionnaire level, record level, and the field level. So first, you need to have access over the platform, over the Archer. You need to have an account with which you can log in into the Archer. Then you need to have an access over the application or the questionnaire on which you need to work upon. Then you need to have the record level access, so that you are able to either create the records, view the records, update the records, or either delete the records. Deletion is not recommended, and it's rarely given to end users. It's not given. It's just for the administrators who have it. But we do have a delete access as well. Then come to the field level, we have the private and the public access. If it's a public field, then it can be viewed by everybody. But if it's a private field, then only the group of users you have selected can view it. If you give the full access to it, they'll be also able to edit it. So these are the 4 levels of access. Moving on to the next question. What are the different types of actions? Okay, so the different types of actions are, so there are rules and actions in Archer. Now, rules are basically the criteria which define on which the actions work or action gets triggered. So the type of actions are, again, 4 types of actions. Earlier, we used to have 5 types of actions, but now there are just 4, which are apply conditional layout, set date, set values list, and filter value list. These are the different type of actions which we have. Apply conditional layout basically helps you to either make the field required, make the field read-only, display it, do not display it, or make the section as read-only, display, do not display. Set date basically sets the date to either current date, future date, or specific date, to whichever date you want to set it. Set value list, again, there's a field type as value list. So if you want to, based upon a certain criteria, if you want to set a value as A, then with the help of this action, you can set it. Filter value list is like, if you have selected, like suppose if there's a value list called as A, and it has values like colors, fruits, and if you select colors, then only the further it should only, further there is again a B value list, we should show up the colors only and not the fruits. So green, blue, yellow, and so on. You can just filter it. Like if the value is colors, this should come up. If the value is fruits, then apple, mango, banana, all this come up. So it's filter value list used to filter the value list values. Moving on to the third question, we have, what are the types in apply conditional layout? Now, as I told you before, in the second question, in the apply conditional layout, you have the ability to either make the field or the section as read only, display, do not display, make the field required. Similarly, these are the types of apply conditional layout, which is required, read only, display, and do not display. Required makes the field as required. One has to fill in the value. Read only makes the form non-editable for the user. Display makes it visible to the user, and do not display basically hides the fields from the layout at that particular condition for the user. Moving further, going to the question 4, we have what is the frequency of data feeds? So the frequency of data feed, like we have data feeds in the data integration tab, we have data feeds in Archer, which helps us to play around with the data. So what is the frequency, on what intervals it runs? It runs on a minutely basis. Every minute it will run. You can set it to 1 minute, 2 minutes. You can further leverage it to 1, 2, 3, every 5 minutes, every 6 minutes, like that. Or it runs on hourly basis. Every hour, or maybe every 2 hours, 3 hours, you can set it like that. Daily. Then it runs weekly, or it runs monthly. So based upon whatever requirement you are having from the end user, you can basically set the frequency as this. And you can further set in the time. So it will run accordingly. You don't have to do anything. Based upon whatever frequency is set, the data feed will run. Now, what are the different transport methods in data feeds? So data feed is further divided into 2 types. There are 2 methods to it. Sorry. So there are data feeds is further divided into many types. There are different transport methods in data feeds. As per the requirement, we use those different types. So we have FTP transporter data feed, that is file transporter. HTTP transporter, Archer Web Services transporter, which is the most commonly used one. It is used from Archer to Archer. Then we have RSS transporter and we have JavaScript transporter. So if we have to do anything dynamic, or if there's any data coming up from the external and we have to put it in Archer, we usually go for the RSS or JavaScript transporter data. Moving to the next question 6, what are the different type feed types? So in the data feed, we have the different types. We have one as standard and we have the other as transport only. So the standard is like it's used from Archer to Archer, from moving one record to the other in one instance to the other. Then transport, we have like file transporter. If we place a file on the server, based upon the server, we can actually, what we can do is, we can just grab those particular records from there and we can pull it into Archer. So that is what is transporting. Moving to the question 7, we have what are the different types of notifications. Now notifications, we have to basically notify the user. So there are different notifications. Again, this depends upon the requirement, what type of notification you want to configure. So we have scheduled report distribution, we have subscription notification and on-demand notification template. Scheduled report distribution, as the name suggests, says it has a particular report in a form of Excel, and then you can further leverage it. You can just get the data in the Excel format and then you can use it. Subscription notification is basically when there's no advanced workflow involved and you have to just send a notification based on some filter criteria. There's a subscription notification. On-demand notification template is used when we are working with the help of, configuring the advanced workflow in Archer. And in between the workflow, if we have to send a notification to the reviewer, submitter, or whatever stakeholder it is, we use the on-demand notifications. Question 8, what is the frequency of notifications? Now, like data feeds, notification is also having a certain frequency based upon which it runs. The filter criteria is definitely there, but there is a frequency also. And this frequency is very different from the data feeds. This is a very commonly asked question in the interview these days. So the notification either runs instantly, like as soon as the criteria is met, it gets triggered. or it runs on a daily basis, like daily digest, weekly digest, weekly basis, monthly it runs, quarterly, or a reminder notification. What reminder notification means is, like, if there's a certain due date and after the due date has passed, you have to remind the user, or maybe till the due date is coming, you have to remind the user maybe every day or maybe like once. So you just make a reminder notification and you notify the user that please take action upon so and so record before the due date arrives. So this is how it works. This is how the frequency is: instantly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and reminder. Now, what are the different type of iViews? So in the reporting and dashboard, we have workspace, we have dashboards, and dashboards also we have iViews and we have reports. So the different iViews, there are many types of iViews. The list being canvas, custom. Canvas is something is written, it's just like there. Custom, you can just build in any, add in something of your own. You can customize it. Embedded URL, you just put in a URL and as soon as you click on URL, you are redirected to that page. Global searches, if you want to have a global search in there, like we have in Archer at the top. Landing page, where we land. Links list, basically a list. It's a simple, it can be a simple list, it can be a descriptive list. Report, very commonly used. We create reports in Archer and we use it. We have RSS feed. And then we have finally we have the video. We can embed a video in one of the iViews and we can play the video there. So these are the different form of iViews. Coming to question 10, what are different types of schedules and frequency? So there are schedules in Archer and they again have a frequency like notifications and data feeds have. So the schedules are, the type is bulk action, where you can bulk update the records or you can bulk create new references, basically cross references in the record, or you can have calculated schedules. You can also enroll the advanced workflow with the help of schedules. It's rarely used, but you can do it. We have calculated schedules. The frequency of this is hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. Again, it is different from the data feeds and from the notifications. So this is the different type of schedules and the frequency. Now coming to question 11, what is the priority, or you can say order, in apply conditional layout? So whenever we are building up a rule, building up an action, we have certain priority. And this is very commonly used whenever we are creating the application or a questionnaire. We have these DDEs. We sometimes use event analyzer also to troubleshoot which DD is causing the issue, which DD is having a higher priority. Sometimes the requirement is that you have to display the field, but because of some reason, it is becoming read only. So you need to be very clear on the order so that you don't face such scenarios often. So the priority is, so sections are having more priority with respect to the fields. So if a section is read only, then all the fields automatically become read only. And in the sections also, we do not have a required option. We directly have read only, then we have display, we have do not display. Then finally the use default settings, which is there by default. But in the field, we have the ability to make it required. So we have this required, read only, display, do not display, use default settings. Now coming to question 12. So it is asking which is having a high priority. Is it the FVL, that is filter value list, or the SVL, which is set value list? If there is one rule, and if there is filter value list and set value list, which will work? The rule is same, the criteria is same, so what will work? So FVL, that filter value list, is having a high priority on SVL. This is also a common mistake which we do at times when we configure. And this is also one of the most commonly used questions to check your knowledge on the DDs and the actions and the priorities. Moving to question 13, what are the different nodes in advanced workflow and what are they used for? As you know, advanced workflow is a very useful and a commonly used feature in Archer. A lot of applications and questionnaires are having advanced workflow in them. The different workflows, the different nodes which are there are start node, which defines the beginning of the process. From here, the workflow starts. We have the stop node, which stops the workflow process. Start and stop needs to be there in any of the workflow. They can be one start node, but they can be multiple stop nodes. Then we have the evaluate content node, which defines the path of workflow, whether it should follow path A, B, C, or whatever. We have the update content, which basically helps us to update the value or set the value. So with the help of update content, we can reduce writing or making a lot of calculated fields. We can just set the value with the help of update content. Then we have the send notification, like we have on-demand notifications for advanced workflows. Similarly, we can send the notification to the respective users and notify them. The user action is the buttons which we provide to the end users for them to take action upon. Then we have what is the difference between data feed and data import. This is also very commonly asked. So the answer to this is data feed happens based on a frequency. As I told you that data feed is having a certain frequency, whereas data import is not having any frequency. It's just one-time activity. If you have to just upload the data all at once, you just go and do it. But if there is something that you have to do on repeatedly, then you prefer going for the data feed. Then data feed skips the required fields. Like if there are any required fields and if you have not mapped it, you can still run the data feed and it will, the records will get created or updated, whatever is needed. But if you do a data import and if the required field is blank, then it will not allow you to do the data import. Rather, the data import will fail. And also for a data import, you need to have a CSV file. So this is the basic two differences I've written. There are more differences. You can go in Archer, you can test it yourself. You can refer to the help guides so that you can know and understand. Coming to the question 15, what is the difference between application, questionnaire, and sub-form? It is basically a standalone itself. It do not require anything. You can just simply create an application and it will work. But for a questionnaire, you need to have a target. If there's no target application to it, you cannot create a questionnaire. And then sub-form, so it's a field type. We do create a sub-form and then we use it in any of the application or questionnaire, but it's just a field type. Application when saved will show up the tracking ID. Suppose you click on add new. You create all the you fill in all the required fields and you click on save. Then you'll see the tracking ID. But what happens in questionnaire is, as soon as you create the questionnaire, you just select that application, click on apply, the questionnaire ID is there. So, and one needs to be very careful while designing the advanced workflow as well. That for an application, you can just start, but for a questionnaire, you need to be careful. If there are any required fields that needs to be filled in, if there's anything that needs to be taken care of in the start, and then the advanced workflow should proceed. Then sub-form is very easy to configure. It is not having any DDEs, any record permissions, notifications. It is not even having any calculated fields. And the number of other fields which are there in sub-form is very less as compared to the application and questionnaire. Applications require licenses. We need to have license for creating an application, whereas questionnaires and sub-forms don't need any license. Then application is having system, advanced and basic fields. Questionnaire is having question, advanced system, and basic fields. This is also one of the differences which I'm not mentioned in here, but you can obviously configure whenever you configure, you have a look in Archer, you can get to see how things work. And you can also try to find out more differences between the application, questionnaire, and sub-form. So in the interview, what will happen? They may not ask you this question directly. Sometimes they ask, sometimes they don't. Maybe they can ask you that how you choose whether you have to go with the application or a questionnaire or sub-form. Maybe they can ask you in this form. Then we have question 16, which is what can be the possible scenarios if the notification is not working? So basically, when you try to troubleshoot a notification, if there is any request when you are a part of support team, or maybe in the development, if you come across anything as such, or maybe it's just an interview question they ask, then what are the ways that you can troubleshoot it? So there are different ways. The notification might not be enabled from the application questionnaire level. There's a checkbox in the properties. It should be enabled from there. It may be inactive. The notification is having two statuses as active and inactive. It can be inactive. It may not have a record which is satisfying the filter criteria. So maybe the filter criteria says that this notification should get triggered when the overall status should be submitted. But the record is having the overall status as in progress. So you need to be careful. The notification job might not be running. So from the server side, the job might not be running. It's not working properly. You need to restart the job, or you need to run the job. If you have the access to the control panel, well and good. If you do not have, you need to go to that concerned person, ask for the checking it. And if it's not enabled or not running, then that person has to run the job. Sometimes this also happens that the user which is selected in the recipients, maybe that user is logged or inactive. Or maybe if you have selected a field instead of a user or a group, so maybe that field is not having any recipient, so to which that notification will go. So these are the possible scenarios while troubleshooting a notification. Question 17 is what is looping transition issue in advanced workflow? So as you all know that we have a job troubleshooting separately for advanced workflow. We have sometimes even in job troubleshooting, like most of the times we understand, but sometimes it happens that even the job troubleshooting, we are like, why is it just stuck here? It's not showing. So what happens in that case? There are two transitions coming, and it is pointing to the same node. A and B, there's one node called as XYZ. There's transition A, there's transition B. Both are coming to one. And ideally, if it's a loop, then one has to be a dotted transition, not a solid one. Most of the times the archer understands itself, sometimes the archer do not understand. So we need to be careful and check whether we make it as a looping transition as yes. Otherwise it will stuck there and you'll have some issue in trying to know what is happening. Question 18. What is a calculated cross-reference and what is the use of it? So calculated cross-reference, this was something which came up recently and not recently, I mean, but yeah, in the 6.x version, it was not there in the 5.x. So there was a huge demand for this, and that is why RSA Archer launched it. Cross-reference, calculated cross-reference is used whenever we are dealing with three applications at a time. Suppose if we have a regulatory intelligence item application, we have issues application, and we have action plan. In the regulatory intelligence item, we have issues and we have action plan. Instead of selecting the action plan again and again, what we can do is we can just make the action plan as calculated such that whatever issues we select, it will automatically bring up all those action plans associated with it. We have already defined issues and action plans. Like if the issue is A, this B is the action plan. If the issue is C, D is the action plan. So in the regulatory intelligence items, if we have identified an already existing A issue, we can just go there, select that A issue, and instead of going in the action plan and selecting the B action plan, it will automatically give B if we make it as a calculated process. Now, question 19, what are the different types of record permissions? So there are three different types of record permissions. Manual, in which whoever is selected manually in the field, that user will get the rights. We can have rules also for it. Automatic also we can have rules. Automatic is more like by default, that particular group or user will get the rights. Inherited is like a parent-child relationship. If there's application A, there's application B. Then based upon whatever is inherited, whatever rights is there in application A, it gets inherited to application B. Coming to question 20, what can be the possible reasons when data feed shows service connection failure issues? Now, I talked about the notification troubleshooting. Now I'll talk about the data feed troubleshooting. So this is also one of the most commonly used questions and a most commonly faced problem. So whenever you find like you run the data feed and you get this error that service connection area failed, the location is -1. Either the URL which is there is not correct, or the report ID is not correct. There's no data in the report. The user you are defined should be a unique one. It's not that that same user is getting used in all the notifications or anywhere else. It has to be a system administrator user with all the rights. And the password of the user should not have expired. That can also sometimes cause this issue. Question 21. What are the components that can be put while packaging in Archer? So we package from one instance to the other. We package the configuration. What all we can package is, we can package the application, we can package the questionnaire, the workspaces, the dashboards, access roles, and the data feeds also. Earlier, there was no data feeds. We used to export the data feed and import it. But now we can import the data feeds as well. Coming to question 22, what needs to be done if an end user reports access issue with a record? So if there's a user, he is saying or she is saying that he or she is not able to edit the record, but is able to read the record, or maybe not able to view the record. In that case, you first need to go to the investigate access. This is a very useful feature which Archer introduced in 6.x version. You just put in the tracking ID of that record, put in the user, and you'll get to see the summarized or the detail of all the record permissions, the access. And then finally, you're looking on the access, the record permissions, you can work on them and try to provide the necessary access to that user. Then question 23, what are the different campaigns in a questionnaire? We have manual campaign where we can manually run the questionnaires and the questionnaire gets launched. We have the recurring campaigns. If there is a certain change in the condition, it generates or triggers. Then we have a scheduled campaign. Based upon the set schedule, it will trigger at that particular time. Question 24. What is having more priority in a questionnaire? The show hide rules or the DDEs? So in the questionnaire, we have the show hide rules also and the DDEs also, like we have in applications. But the show hide rules holds a higher priority over the DDEs. So even while designing a questionnaire, you have to be very careful. The show hide rules only work on the question type of fields. And you have to be careful if you are setting something else in the transactions and if you're doing something else in the show hide. So show hide rule will take the priority. It also helps you in troubleshooting. And it's also an interview question. Now, question 25, can we import a calculated field? So there are certain restrictions to data import as well. If a field is already calculated, it will work on a certain logic as soon as a record gets saved. So there's no point in uploading a calculated field. It will not upload, rather it will throw up an error. Same goes for the feed. You cannot upload a calculated field because as soon as a record gets generated or record gets created, as per the logic, the field will have a different value. So, no. Now, question 26. When do we see the full recalculation button enabled in any application and questionnaire? In the calculations tab, you have this option as full recalculation. You'll only get to see this option when there is today or now functions used in any of the calculations. Then only that is enabled, otherwise it's grayed out. Now, what is data publication? We have talked about data integration, mail merge, data imports, data feeds. Now, data publication, what it is. So data publication extract all of the data within a solution and load it into a relational database. Now coming to what is TPRM. This is the most commonly asked question in the interview these days. It's the most used use case widely all across. TPRM is a third-party risk management solution that calculates the inherent and residual risk coming from the third parties. RSA Archer has also recently created a vendor engaged portal for this third party. Many organizations are using it. So this is very important. I would recommend you to go deeply into the TPRM solution, whatever RSA provides. And if you have configured one, go through that and just draw a comparison and try to understand functionally what it actually does. Question 29, what is everyone in Archer? So there you see in the record permissions, you get to see everyone, all users, all groups, and sometimes it says everyone. Or maybe if you're making a action, you see that everyone has a option there in the user groups list. So what is this everyone? This is a group and not a user. Don't get confused. Everyone, when you see it's a group. It's a system generated group. It's RSA is having this everyone as a default group, which is present there. You don't need to create or edit or do anything with it. And it's not a user, it's a group. Now moving to the last part, the last question, what is GRC? There can be few people who can ask this question in the interview. There can be few who cannot ask. But ideally, you should know what GRC is. So GRC is governance, risk, and compliance, which helps to make strategic decisions and reduce the number of risk and threats caused. This is a very simple definition of what GRC is, but you can obviously leverage it based upon your understanding and your experience and knowledge, whatever you have so far, whatever work you have done so far. So that was all from my side for today. Hope you have got enough knowledge and enough idea of what interview questions are asked these days. And all the best for your interviews. I just hope you get your dream job. Thank you so much. And please, please, please do give your feedback so that we can improve and we can help you.